So now we're in the decaling stage. Now with the decaling stage, with this particular model, there's not much decaling. It is an armoured vehicle, so we're kind of going to skip a load of it. If you want to go check out some basic decaling, we've got tutorials on the Genesis Models website. But with this one, as you can see, not much in the likes of decaling. You know, it's got some main decals just here, and then we've got some at the back and like our license plate and stuff underneath. Really not much going on, but I did want to sort of just let you know what decaling solutions work well with these particular decals, because I've not used Meng decals before. Micro solid set, I always, you know, as a little tip, always best to start off with micro solid set. If you've not used these particular decals before, or any kind of decals, always start off with micro solid set. They're your go-to type of decaling solutions, because they're sort of like a mild decaling solution in which you never really want to go off with something like the Mr. Mark softer or setter, because they are quite strong. So if you're using decals you've never used before and you use a strong decaling solution like the Mr. Mark softer, right, you can really sort of wrinkle and soften your decals, and you could ruin them potentially. So it's why I always start off with micro solid set, which is what I did, and I did find it wasn't quite sort of softening the decals up as much as I would like. So in the end, I did go with the Mr. Mark softer and setter, just to sort of help them sort of soften up and conform to the model better. A little tip as well while we're at it, because I did find that, you know, when we sort of apply the Mr. Mark softer, I don't know if you guys know this, but basically the brushes you get with these, they're quite sort of firm bristles, almost hog hair kind of bristles on them, and it is there for a good sort of reason, because what you can do is basically, instead of just kind of painting on your solution, right, what you can do is you can actually sort of dab at it, and because the bristles, you know, are a bit stiff, when you dab at it, you can sort of help the decal or decal conform better to the model, just like that. You sort of just dab down at it. Now this technique is something that you don't want to be doing at the beginning, right? You know, the first time you sort of apply the solution, don't be doing that. You want to have applied the solution maybe 3 times or 2 or 3 times, just so as the decal actually starts to stick to the model, right? Doing it too early can start sort of creasing up, moving your decal, that kind of thing. You want to sort of have done a couple of applications so it's really started to stick down, just like this one. As I've had a few goes at it, it's sort of nicely stuck down. But you know, now I can sort of dab at it and it's not going to move or crease up on itself or something. And you know, these final last coats, you know, we could just dab at it and it just helps it conform that little bit better. And then all we got to do really then is sort of leave that to dry, do your usual sort of clean up, and make sure you clean up any leftover residue of the decaling solutions, and then it's good to sandwich it in with another gloss coat ready for the weathering stage, which is what we're going to tackle next. So after the decaling stage, we're going to now move on to our first stage of weathering, where we're going to now do a filter. What a filter basically does is it's going to sort of change the hues and make our colours here just sort of be a little bit more interesting. It's a nice subtle technique. Now first off, we are going to get sort of like a nice big brush. I've got a size 8, a flat brush. Good to use a flat brush to cover some nice big areas. Now we're going to be using filters. For this one we're going to use in Meng Jimenez is 1510, which is their tan for free tone camo. Nice colour for something like this, because we have 3 different colours going down. You know, we've got the NATO NATO black, brown and green. Right, so simply give this a good shape, make sure it's all, you know, nicely mixed and everything. If they don't have ball bearings in there, it's a good idea to buy some and sort of throw a ball bearing in there, just helps mix them up. And this is quite a simple application, and it's an all over technique. You just want to paint everything basically with this. Right, so I can just quickly sort of show you on this little armored skirt just here. What we're going to do, we're going to just dip in and, you know, make sure it's not too sort of soaking in our filter here, and we can just nice and easily just paint this all the way across. Now this is very thinned down enamels, right, thinned down to a nice consistency, and it's a little it's a very subtle technique as well. Now as we paint it down, we want to make sure that when we put down a filter, it's like putting a film down. We're not kind of painting it down and letting it go into all the nooks and crannies and the recesses and build up and sort of bring out the recesses. You know, that's for the wash stage. This is just an all over film. So as we paint this down, we do want to make sure that, you know, it's not pooling up, right, it's not sort of building up in areas, just nicely all over, just like so, nice and simple. Little hard to notice. This is kind of like where some people potentially don't like to do this stage, because it's a little hard to notice. Right, I can show you a little bit more on maybe our whole section just here. Right, just dipping in. It's a good idea as well is as you're going along, because it takes a little bit of time, you know, just stop, close your lid up and just give your bottle another shake again, right, because it does sediment quite quickly. So we can just again paint this on. We can, I like to sort of take segments, take panels and just work my way along, just to do a bit by bit rather than just blasting it all on and letting it all go everywhere. I just like to sort of do bits at a time, and as you can see, it goes down quite easy. Right, but it is just a case of just getting used to not letting it flow everywhere and pool up. Right, so I've applied that again just there. Now good idea as well to also, you know, come back. Right, so we've just done this side skirt, and anywhere where, say, oh, we've got a bit of a pool up just there, we can get a kitchen paper towel, right, and we can just dab our paintbrush on the kitchen paper towel to make it less to make it sort of moist. Right, and what this does is it allows us, so we've got a bit here that's kind of just, you know, pulled up. We can now sort of suck up where that's pulled up a bit, right, because we don't want any pooling up. We don't want it to be too much in certain areas. So just kind of like going around, I can come back to this one now, see where it's maybe pulled up, and it's pulled up a little bit there, so I'll just suck that up a little bit and spread it out a bit. Right, and just keep it so it's a nice film, and that's basically how you apply this stuff. Right, and I have already done this technique is a little bit hard to see, but if we sort of maybe sort of try and show you, I don't know how well you're going to pick this up on camera, but I've done this the turret section. And what it does, it just sort of changes the hues that little bit, very subtly changes the hue, so as, you know, makes it a bit more of an interesting piece, right? Because all we've done to these, the paint scheme at the moment is just, you know, we've done maybe a bit of bleaching and stuff, but you know, what this does is sort of, as I say, it just makes it more interesting. But at the same time, what I do find is, again, I don't know how well you can pick it up on camera because it's quite subtle, it gives it a slight bit of a dusty, dirty look to it as well, very subtly, right? With this technique, it's all over. We're not targeting areas, just an all over, changing the hues, making it interesting, giving it a slight dirty, dusty look. And it's all about, when it comes to weathering, which is, you know, this is the first stage, nice and easy, but we're going to be tackling so many different weathering stages, and you know, some are more subtle than others. Filters one of them, quite subtle. Some are more intense than others, but when we weather a model, it's all about bringing all these little techniques that I'm going to show you, and they all come together to make a whole, to make a bigger picture, right? And when it comes to filters as well, depending on how dirty you want your model to be, once this has dried, I mean this turret has now dried, I mean I could go off and apply a second coat if I wanted to make it more sort of intense and not so subtle, depending on how dirty it is. Good sort of like maybe World War II vehicles that are seeing a lot of action, you know, really make them really dirty. And then after that, it's just a nice, I like to personally seal these in with another little gloss coat, because a lot of the techniques are kind of little bits here and there, but this one, it's like you're painting everything, and it can easily be rehydrated by other weathering techniques. So I like to give it not a full-on gloss coat, sealing it in as you would say after doing deckling or something, but like maybe start off with a misty coat and then just a light coat, just to give it that little bit of protection, just to seal it in, ready for all the other weathering techniques that we're going to do. So there's filters. Again, it's very subtle, a bit hard to see on camera, but it helps create that bigger picture of bringing all those techniques together. So we'll move on with the next weathering stage just after I've got this done and sealed in with another gloss coat. We're now going to move along to washes, the nice next stage after doing filters. And what this is going to do is sort of bring out the detail of the model, create sort of shadows and dirty spots. So for this, we're going to be using washes. This is by Ammo. I'm going to start off with the dark brown wash for green vehicles, which is 1005 by Ammo. Now this would be okay on its own, but because we've got like a free colored camouflage system going on here, you might want to sort of add a couple more colors just to sort of bring things out, because you'll find that, you know, it'll work really nice on say the NATO green, but then when we come to say NATO black, you know, it's a bit harder to see. So mixing the colors up is probably a good idea. Now with this, it's basically like doing a pin wash in the application of it with a cleanup stage after. So giving these bottles a good shake, which just as a little sort of tip, I wouldn't go off like I've done and I buy the whole range all in one go. You know, sort of buy as you need it. I have found that over the years, you know, these kind of enamel type washes, the filters, the panel line washes and the streaking effects, that the enamels do seem to sediment to the bottom, and if they sit there for years, you know, they go hard, and you know, they basically have a shelf life. So you know, just buy as and when you need it, right? So just a little tip there. So we open this up, and basically, as I say, it's like a pin wash where we dip in to our thinners just here. Let's move this out of the way so I don't knock it. And what we're going to do is, we've got all these sort of areas where we can just simply sort of like pin it. We just sort of touch the area and we let it sort of flow around any sort of areas you can find, you know, where you'd get sort of shadows, where you'd get, you know, dirt build up, any sort of detail areas that you want to sort of bring to the foreground, and bring you maybe as close as we can get, and hopefully you can sort of see how that does sort of, you know, to a degree flow around and into these areas. And let's get another bit here, and we can sort of dab some down here, and just as you can see, I'm just touching it and pinning it as I go along, and it just fills in these areas. Don't worry about mistakes. You know, the cleanup stage, you know, isn't that hard. Alright, so any mistakes is absolutely fine. Right, even I don't mind myself. We've got these sort of rough areas for walking on, sort of like anti-slip. I don't mind just sort of painting these all in, just like so. Right, just lightly do it, and I'll show you up the clean stage in a bit. I mean, it looks maybe a little bit sort of too messy at the moment, but with the cleanup stage we're going to do, it's just going to clean that up nicely, and it just leaves behind, you know, a little bit of this wash, which then just gives it a little bit more interest and makes it look almost like there's a bit of a dusty dirtiness going on these anti-slip surfaces. Right, so I like to just paint them in like so, sort of nice and, you know, as neatly as you can. Right, we've even got these weld marks along here. Right, I like to just paint along these, and then we'll clean these up later as well. Right, but as I say, it works well on the green. You know, it works pretty well on the brown as well. Right, but when it comes to the black area, this one is possibly, this kind of dark brown is maybe a little bit too dark. Right, so not a bad idea if we just clean off our paintbrush, and we're going to want something like an odorless turpentine. I mean, this is by 502, you know, but I do find that whether it's AK, Ammo, 502, right, odorless turpentine, doesn't even have to be turpentine, but odorless thinners, right, they all seem to kind of work the same, in all honesty. We'll use this for the cleanup stage, but you know, it's also good to clean off your paintbrush as we do a quick color change. And I like to use, for the black areas, make sure we give this a good shake, I like to use the US Modern Vehicle Wash, which is 1007. Sorry, it wasn't on camera there. There we go, 1007. And this one's a bit of a lighter brown, so as you know, it's gonna take to our NATO black areas that little bit better. So again, you know, we're just sort of touching around detail areas, you know, letting it flow in there, right, and we can clean this up at a later stage. Now, if you want your paint to flow a bit more, you don't need to really, because you can just sort of keep touching it and just, you know, fill these areas in, or actually almost sort of paint it. But if you did want things to, say, flow a little bit better, right, for example, what we could do here is you can get out your odorless thinners, and if you paint with your odorless thinners first, say we want to do this little raised area here, we can just sort of quickly add some of this thinners in this area. Right, it's just clear thinners, but what it's going to do is when we come in with our dark brown wash, right, and we sort of, see if we can get this on camera, if we sort of touch an area with this, it's going to flow more. Right, you might even see it sort of slowly flow a bit, and I've only got to touch it in an area or two. Right, and it just helps it flow that little bit more. So if you wanted to go down that route as well, you know, just put down some thinners first, then touch it with the wash. It just really sort of makes it flow. So you've only got to touch one area and it'll spread out about a centimetre or something, you know, just to help that flow, help that capillary action. And it's just a case of now just sort of going all around the model. You know, I like to do all my anti-slip areas, do all your nuts and bolts, raised areas, any detail work going all the way over. But what you want to do is a little bit of experience. You want to sort of make sure that it dries for about half an hour, so it looks dry, but you don't want to be doing, say, the whole model. So like, I don't know, maybe an hour or 2 hours later, you've done the whole model, right? Because the next stage is all about sort of cleaning up and rehydrating. And if you let this wash sort of take too long to dry where it starts to cure, right, it makes the cleanup stage a little bit harder. So you kind of want to go further enough doing all your pin washing, so as within half an hour you can then start doing your cleanup stage. So I'll probably do, say, half of this turret, do my cleanup stage, do the other half of the turret, do my cleanup stage, just to get the drying times just right.